There is a moment, a silent, split-second decision, that defines the trajectory of power in any interaction. It is the moment someone calls you out, accuses you, or questions your worth, your character, your intent. In that fragile, electric space, the average person operates on a deep-seated, primal instinct, the need for validation. They do what they have been trained to do since childhood. They defend. It wasn't my intention. You've misunderstood me completely. I swear, I'm not that kind of person. It sounds noble. It feels reasonable. It seems fair. But to the strategic mind, the mind of a Machiavelli, this moment of defense is the precise instant you lose everything. Because the second you justify your position, you admit to a fatal weakness, you require their understanding to feel secure. You have handed them the gavel and willingly stepped into the defendant's box. In the subtle, brutal theater of power games, perception is not just important, it is the only currency. If they see you flinch, they do not see a victim pleading their case. They see blood in the water. This is the brutal, non-negotiable law that Machiavelli understood before anyone else: the man who defends himself, lowers himself. The man who does not, forces the world to defend him instead. Let us dismantle the illusion of defense. Defending yourself rarely, if ever, convinces your accuser. What it does accomplish, with devastating efficiency, is to shift all power away from you. When you scramble to justify your actions, you are playing exclusively on their field, by their rules. You are accepting their framing of the situation. You are saying, without uttering a single word of admission, you have the authority to question me. Your judgment holds weight over my own. And once you have granted them that authority, they own the narrative. You are merely a character in their story. Even if you are factually right, you look guilty. Why? Because only the weak, the uncertain, the desperate rush to explain. The strong, they let the silence burn. They let the accusation hang in the air, untouched, because they know the real power move is not to answer the charge, but to shatter the very framework that made it possible. The move is to turn the accusation into a mirror. Make them doubt themselves. Make them look emotional, obsessed, bitter, unstable. Because in any conflict, the one who speaks first in their own defense often loses control of the frame. And Machiavelli knew with absolute certainty, whoever controls the frame, controls the outcome. Why do most people feel this compulsive need to explain? It stems from a deep-seated desire to be understood. They operate under the fragile belief that if they can just clarify enough, articulate enough, repeat themselves enough, they will be vindicated. But this belief does not come from a place of strategy, it is born from a place of emotional weakness. It is a need for external validation. You must shift your desire. You do not want clarity. You want control. Clarity is for therapy. Control is for power. And true power does not come from being understood, it comes from being feared, respected, and ultimately, untouchable. So, when someone labels you, arrogant, cold, selfish, manipulative, and your immediate, gut reaction is to say, no, you don't understand, let me explain, you have already lost. You are now reacting. You are proving you care deeply about their opinion. You have placed the ball firmly in their court. And in doing so, you have surrendered the most potent Machiavellian asset you possess, mystery. Think of the most powerful people you have ever encountered. Not the loudest, not the most liked. The ones who held silence like a weapon. The ones who made you second-guess your own convictions just by a steady, calm stare. The ones who, when attacked, never flinched. Machiavelli would tell you this: he who explains, submits. He who remains silent, forces others to fill in the blanks. And when people are forced to fill in the blanks about you, they almost always overestimate you. That is the entire game. When you refuse to react, you make people profoundly uncomfortable. They begin to doubt their own words. They look around the room for validation and find only the echo of your stillness. Suddenly, their power shrinks while yours expands invisibly. Because you have done the one thing no emotional person can handle, you have made them talk to themselves. And that is how you execute the flip. You let their accusation die in the echo of its own weakness. Let's go deeper into the mechanics. You walk into a room. Someone throws shade, a subtle or direct jab at your success, your attitude, your past. All eyes turn to you, waiting for your move. And your move is this: say nothing. No defense. No retaliation. No smirk of contempt. Just calm, total, imposing stillness. In that moment, you become untouchable because everyone in the room is now forced to ask themselves, why didn't he react? Does he know something we don't? Is he truly above this? Did that attack just make him look stronger? You have just flipped the entire social frame. Because people are not really watching the accusation, they are watching your response. And silence, when delivered with unwavering presence, speaks louder than any justification ever could. Machiavelli knew this. He didn't just study politics, he studied the deepest layers of human psychology. He understood one thing better than anyone: power isn't about what you say. It's about what people believe you could say, but choose not to. Now, here is the coldest move of all. Sometimes, you don't just ignore the accusation. You invert it. Someone calls you manipulative. You don't tense up. You offer a slight, knowing smile, look past them as if gazing at a distant horizon, and say with cool, neutral detachment, if that's how you see it. Not defensive. Not apologetic. Just detached. What happens? They scramble. They were primed for a fight. They were hoping to watch you squirm. Instead, they are left holding their own weapon, and it suddenly feels heavy and foolish in their hands. That's when the guilt and doubt sets in on their side. They start wondering if they overstepped, if they embarrassed themselves, if they now look insecure. And guess what? They do. You have just taken the negative energy they threw at you and made them carry it back, without lifting a finger. There is a moment when silence becomes unbearable, not for you, but for the one who expected a reaction. That is when the tables turn irrevocably. They thought they were the accuser. Now, they are exposed as the one begging for your attention, for your energy. And you? You have just become something far more powerful than innocent. You have become untouchable. Machiavelli understood something most will never grasp: words are rarely used to clarify truth, more often, they are used to obscure it. When someone attacks you, they want you to fight through their fog. They want to drown you in emotional explanation because they know, the more you explain, the less certain you appear. So, instead, you let them fill the silence. And what happens? They overplay their hand. They repeat themselves. They escalate. They start looking desperate, emotional, unstable. You said nothing, but now they are the one under the judgment of the room. Why? Because the crowd isn't listening to the words anymore, they are watching who is calm and who is rattled. That is social power. And it doesn't come from being right. It comes from being unassailable. Applied strategy, the boardroom. Let's say you're in a business meeting. A colleague subtly undermines you: "I'm not sure that strategy is really thought through," or "he always has these bold ideas." They are fishing for a reaction. They want you to bite. What do most people do? They lean forward. They explain. They prove. They clarify. They get nervous. The room smells the anxiety. But the Machiavellian operator? He leans back. He waits. Lets the accusation hang in the air. Maybe he offers a faint, almost imperceptible smirk. And if he speaks, it is not a defense. It is a redirect that flips the frame entirely. "Let's hear your strategy, then." Now the attacker is on stage. They are being evaluated. They are under pressure. The silence from the confident is an accusation without words. It makes people feel small without you having to do a thing. Applied strategy, the relationship. In romantic or personal relationships, this dynamic is even more potent. Your partner says, "You don't care about me anymore." The average person will panic. They'll launch into a torrent of explanations, reassurances, and defenses. In doing so, they validate the emotional frame of neediness and accusation. But the Machiavellian approach is different. You do not dismiss them. You do not argue. You let the weight of their accusation hang in the space between you. You watch them feel their own drama echo back at them. Then, with profound calm, you respond, "That's not how I see it." Short. Grounded. No explanation. No justification. Now they feel uncertain. They question their own emotional state. They wonder if they were too reactive. Why? Because in that moment, you held power over what matters most, the emotional tempo. And whoever controls the tempo, controls the frame. The ultimate tactic, strategic disappearance. There is a deeper, even colder tactic. Don't just remain calm when accused. Disappear. Someone insults you online or in life. Don't reply. Don't respond. Don't even acknowledge it by blocking them, which is still a reaction. Let your absence sit like a mirror. Let them sit in the silence of being utterly ignored. This breaks people in two ways. They realize you did not even deem them worthy of a response. They start spinning internal, self-destructive narratives. The average person survives on emotional validation. Even negative attention is fuel. If you take that away completely, they wither. They spiral. They post more. They try to bait a reply. And with every new attempt, they look weaker, more obsessed, more unhinged, all while you remain perfectly still. That is how you win. Not because you proved anything, but because they destroyed themselves trying to get a reaction from a statue. The art of the reframe, power judo. Here is where it gets elite. Instead of defending yourself when attacked, you master the art of making their accusation look like a symptom of their own weakness. Someone calls you arrogant. You respond, "Strange that confidence makes some people so uncomfortable." Someone says you're manipulative. You respond, "Interesting. People who can't be influenced often say that." Someone calls you fake. You respond, "Everyone says that when they stop getting what they want." You do not just deny the accusation. You transmute it into their insecurity. Now, they are the ones scrambling to defend themselves. This isn't just a reversal, it is a power judo throw. You have used their own emotional force and turned it into their public collapse. Machiavelli would call this the turn of the blade. Do not meet the sword with a shield. Step aside, and let the attacker fall upon his own blade. The world teaches you to defend your reputation, to explain yourself, to clear your name. But Machiavelli saw the trap. He knew that the moment you chase innocence, you admit the possibility of guilt. The true strategist never plays that game. Instead, he appears too composed to be shaken, too elevated to care, too clear on his own position to explain it to others. And slowly, those who try to tear him down begin to look unstable, reactive, jealous, and weak. Because the more you defend, the more it looks like you need to. But the more you ignore, the more dangerous they assume you are. And that assumption is where true power is born. Most people think power is about proving yourself. Proving you're right. Proving you're not what they say you are. But Machiavelli would smirk at this, because the second you try to prove anything, you have already declared the other person's judgment to be valid. And when you hand someone that validation, you hand them your leash. The digital arena. In the digital world, this escalates faster. Comments, call-outs, DMs, all designed to bait you into a reaction. Here is the truth Machiavelli would burn into your mind: in the court of public opinion, silence is often interpreted as guilt, unless your silence commands fear. So, the tactic evolves. When attacked online, don't defend. Don't explain. Distort. You do not address the claim. You redirect the energy back into the crowd. Example, someone posts, "You're so toxic and manipulative." The weak post a tearful defense or a long, fact-based clarification. The Machiavellian posts, as a standalone statement, unrelated to the attack, "People always call you dangerous when they can't control you." What just happened? You didn't defend. You reframed the accusation into a badge of power. Now they look bitter. You look unfazed. The audience begins to question who is really in control. That isn't damage control, that is narrative dominance. The three tools of the unassailable. Forget defense. Arm yourself with these three tools instead. Silence, the default. Cold, powerful, it leaves your accuser exposed and swinging at air. Deflection, the art of reframing the narrative without ever acknowledging the jab. Is that how you see it? Interesting take. Precision cuts, short, sharp, undeniable truths that end the game immediately. These are not defenses, they are status assertions. You're full of yourself. Confidence upsets the insecure. You're fake. I don't owe you authenticity. You think you're better than everyone? No. I just don't think like everyone. These responses do not say, "I'm not guilty." They say, "You can't touch me." That is the core. The Machiavellian never begs to be seen as good. He dares people to see him as dangerous, and walks taller for it. When you refuse to defend yourself, something profound happens to your enemies, they become unhinged. They expected a battle and instead are swinging at smoke. They escalate. They push harder. They get more dramatic. They expose more of their own insecurity. And the more they do, the more you rise in the eyes of others. Why? Because you have made them perform their own collapse. That is the Machiavellian endgame, you don't destroy your enemies. You let their obsession with you destroy them. You might fear being misunderstood. But being predictable is far more dangerous. The misunderstood individual possesses mystery. The predictable individual is easy to manipulate. People who are always trying to clear things up are seen as desperate. People who remain calmly misunderstood are feared. Machiavelli knew this, it is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both. But even more, it is better to be confusing than predictable. Because a confused adversary is cautious. He watches you. He does not act rashly. And that means you control the entire field. Let's crush the final illusion. You do not need a good reputation to win. You need a strong one. The man with a good reputation is expected to be clean, soft, and agreeable. The man with a strong reputation. He is not always liked. He is not always trusted. But no one dares move against him casually. That is what happens when you never defend yourself. Your reputation becomes not about what people believe, but about what they fear you are capable of. That is how you flip the power. You stop fighting for approval, and instead, you create an aura that makes people cautious. Because even your silence feels like a deliberate decision. And every move you don't make becomes a powerful move in their mind. The final evolution is not mere silence. It is aura. A presence so composed, so secure, so far above the petty noise that accusations simply evaporate before they can land. This doesn't come from being emotionless. It comes from being unbothered by design. Once you have trained yourself not to defend, not to explain, not to seek validation, you cross a fundamental line. A line where your very existence becomes your only defense. And that is when power becomes effortless. Think of the few people in life who never explain themselves. They don't post long justifications. They don't correct the record. They don't argue with critics. And yet, they are often respected the most. Why? Because silence in the face of accusation creates myth. It invites interpretation. And the human mind, when left without an easy explanation, fills the void with assumptions of strength. People assume you must be dangerous. You must know something they don't. You must be so secure that you don't even blink when challenged. That assumption is what makes people follow you. Machiavelli didn't care about being perceived as good. He cared about being in control. And the one who never defends is always in control of perception, even when surrounded by lies. Here is the beautiful paradox: the more you explain yourself, the more alone you look. Because no one feels the need to step in and defend someone who is already passionately arguing on their own behalf. But if you remain calm, silent, and unfazed, people start to feel the urge to defend you for you. That was uncalled for. He didn't even respond. Why are you still pushing? Suddenly, they become your shield. And what is better than defending yourself? Letting others do it for you, without you ever having to ask. That is Machiavellian leverage. Let the crowd argue your case while you remain above the noise. Now you're not just respected, you're elevated. This doesn't happen overnight. You build it like a fortress, stone by stone. By acting with relentless restraint. By choosing stillness over reaction. By never explaining more than you absolutely must. Start here. Never correct insults that are clearly meant to provoke. Let them speak. Let them echo. Your silence tells the room the insult didn't even register on your radar. Respond to indirect shots with calm confusion, not offense. Is that how you see it? Said with total serenity, dismantles the emotional energy behind their attack. Use short, closing phrases instead of defenses. Noted. Okay. Think what you like. Time will tell. Each one closes the door. It doesn't invite debate, it ends the scene. Study your physical presence. The Machiavellian never twitches, flinches, or tenses. Stillness is his armor. The more still you are while others lose control, the more your power expands silently. When people don't know how to provoke you, they fear you. You become unpredictable, not erratic, but unreadable. A dark mirror that reflects their own instability back at them. Machiavelli would say, the most dangerous man is not the one who attacks first. It is the one who never needs to. You will reach a point where the attacks stop. Not because you fought them all, but because people know they will lose before they even start. Your very presence says, I don't play defense. I let others destroy themselves while trying to reach me. There is a critical difference between strength and immunity. Strength still flinches, still reacts, still gets emotional even if it fights back. Immunity doesn't even acknowledge the hit. That is the Machiavellian ideal. You don't win the argument. You end the argument before it begins, by never needing to answer it. Because when you no longer defend yourself, people stop seeing you as someone who needs to be put on trial. You are not on their level. You have moved beyond the court of public approval. The only judgment that matters is your own. From this point on, you do not live in defense. You live in definition. You define your image. You define your tone. You define your silence. And people feel that. They feel the certainty behind your eyes, the calmness in your posture, the danger in your quiet. You are not resisting anymore. You are commanding. And that is when the room finally, irrevocably, shifts.